Some people believe that money solves everything. They look down on others, thinking their success is entirely their own doing, while failure is always someone else's fault. But what if everything changed in an instant? What if life turned upside down, and you found yourself at the bottom? This is the story of a man who was convinced that poverty was a choice. But one encounter changed his perspective forever. Mr. Johnson was a wealthy businessman. He lived in a luxurious mansion, drove an expensive car, and ran a successful company. He was used to attention, respect, and power. But he had one weakness: he despised the poor. Every morning, he rushed to his office, holding his overpriced coffee. And every morning, he walked past a homeless man sitting on the corner. This man only asked for a little money for food, but Mr. Johnson never even looked his way. One day, the homeless man gathered his courage, reached out his hand, and said, "Please, sir, I just need $1 for food." Johnson stopped, smirked, and replied, "You should get a job instead of begging. You're in this situation because of your own choices." He turned away and walked off, never imagining that in just a week, he would be in the same position. But fate has a way of teaching lessons. A few days later, Johnson received an unexpected phone call. His lawyer's voice was tense. "Mr. Johnson, we have a problem. Your company is going bankrupt. We're losing everything." Johnson turned pale. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. How? He had everything. How could this be happening? But the numbers didn't lie. His business collapsed. The bank took his house. His friends disappeared. He was left completely alone. In just 1 week, he lost everything he once thought was important. But worst of all, he had no money. Not even for food. Now, Johnson was on the streets. For the first time, he knew what it felt like to be invisible. People walked past him without a second glance. The same people who used to flatter him now wouldn't even acknowledge him. The wind was cold. His stomach ached from hunger. He sat on the same street corner where the homeless man used to be and suddenly realized he had become just like the man he once despised. But the hardest part? He now understood how humiliating it was to ask for help. He remembered how he had mocked those who reached out to him, and now, he feared hearing the same words: "You should get a job instead of begging." Then, he noticed a sign on a CAF, "Free meals for those in need." He hesitated but stepped inside. Behind the counter stood a familiar face. The homeless man he had once ignored. Johnson couldn't believe his eyes. The man he once saw as worthless was now standing before him, confident, well-dressed, and running his own CAF. The man smiled and said, "Mr. Johnson, you told me to get a job. So I did. Now, I own my own business. How about I treat you to a meal?" Johnson felt a tear roll down his cheek. He never expected life to take such a turn. The man he had once looked down on was now kinder and stronger than he had ever been. Life is unpredictable. One day, you're on top, the next, you could lose everything. The only thing that truly matters is your humanity. Johnson realized that money doesn't define a person. Actions do. And above all, you should never judge someone without knowing their story. What would you do in Mr. Johnson's place? Do people deserve to be judged for their poverty? Or maybe kindness is what will save us all in the end?